All right, tip number 1 is let your painting sit for a day before taking a photo of it if you can. Now this doesn't have so much to do with the paint getting dry, which it will a little bit. With oil paint, the paint won't be dry in 24 hours, but it will have soaked in a little bit to the canvas. And so the paint won't be as raised up off the canvas. And when the paint is raised up off the canvas like that, it's just gonna catch the light differently. It's gonna create little shadows, and it's just gonna make it harder to photograph. Just in my experience, I found that photos of my paintings turn out better when I wait a day to take them. All right, now before I move on to tip number 2, I'm just gonna let you know, like, these tips that I'm giving you about taking photos of your paintings, this is just for, you know, basic good photos that you might post on social media. If you're looking to take photos of your work to make prints of, that's a whole different thing. So I just wanna let you know that before continuing on. All right, tip number 2 is if your painting has been sitting for a bit, hit it with some retouch varnish. I like to use the spray. It's got a matte finish. You can get some that has a glossy finish if you like. And with any varnishing, I always make sure to do it outside because of the fumes. But this is a quick way to bring the colors in your paintings back to life, to bring back that wet paint look. This can also help a lot with your darks because I feel like those are the first to kind of get dull. And I'm specifically using retouch varnish, not regular varnish. See, retouch varnish is a little more flexible, so you can spray it on your painting once it's dry to the touch. Regular varnish, you need to wait until the paint has dried all the way through, which can take 6 months, even sometimes a year. And I get a lot of people asking me like, hey, like I did a painting for somebody and I want to varnish it, like, how do I do it? Because I want to get it to them as soon as possible. So I always say, wait till it's dry to the touch and then use some retouch varnish. You can even keep painting after you've used the retouch varnish. I actually picked this tip up when I took a workshop with Michael Shane Neal. He showed how he would spray his paintings with his retouch varnish to bring back the colors and values to what they looked like when the paint was wet for him to continue on with the painting, and I found it really helpful. If you want to get this retouch varnish, I'll put a link to where you can in the description of this video. All right, gonna jump in here real quick and let you know if you struggle with color mixing and you're not that good with mixing colors, I actually offer the color mixing video from my Foundations of Oil Painting course for free. If you want to check that out, there's a link to it in the description of this video. All right, tip number 3 is try and take a photo of your painting outside in the shade. You can also, you know, open a door to outside and put it right at the edge of the door. The key is you just don't want direct sunlight on it, but you want that good ambient natural daylight. A lot of times I'll just lay it flat on the ground and take a picture of it with my phone. And it's just good in general to use daylight whenever you can. It's not gonna be too warm, it's not gonna be too cool. And when it's in the shade like this, it's not direct, so there's not gonna be as much glare. But sometimes you still get glare. So if you have to, don't be afraid to angle your painting. Like sometimes I'll put something underneath it to angle it up, and I have to play with it a little bit and kind of figure out the right angle so there's no glare before I take the photo. All right, tip number 4, if you can't use natural daylight, you have to take it inside using artificial light, try and get the light that you're using above the canvas. You know, having your light above it, I feel like reduces the chance of glare. Like again, you're still gonna have to probably adjust the light and tweak and fiddle with your canvas and the light to get it just right. But it being above tends to give really good results, which is convenient because in previous videos, like I've recommended this really good light for above your easel to paint with. And I recommended that light because it's good to not have glare in your painting while you're painting. So I like using that light a lot of times too to take photos of my paintings. And since they have 2 movable heads, I can really adjust things to where I like and to make sure the whole canvas is being lit and that there's no glare. And of course, I will have a link to where you can get that light in the description of this video. All right, tip number 5 is when you're taking a photo with your phone, make sure you're far enough away from your painting so that the distortion from the lens doesn't come into effect that much. If you get as close as you can to your painting, yes, it's gonna be a higher quality image, but it's gonna be distorted on the edges. So I like to stand back. A little trick I do actually is I switch to portrait mode to line it up and make sure I'm far enough back. And then I switch out of portrait mode and take the photo there. After that, I can crop it in if I want to. Another helpful tip for avoiding distortion is going to the settings in your phone and putting on the grid. That way you can see the edges of your canvas lining up with the edge of the grid and you can see if things are being distorted or not. Even if your photo does come out distorted, it's a pretty easy fix. You can edit the photo right there in your phone and you can play with the distortion and the angle and everything to make sure everything lines up. All right, tip number 6 is don't be afraid to experiment with different setups, different angles, different lighting. My process of taking photos with my phone is constantly evolving. For example, recently I've found that taking the photo on just a slight angle helps. Like I feel like a lot of times I find myself holding my phone up a little higher than the painting and angling down a little bit. I feel like I get less glare. Like I'm always looking at the viewfinder, trying to find the right angle with as least amount of glare. Now you don't want it so angled that it looks off, but cheating it a little this way or a little that way could be the difference of a certain area having glare on it or not. You can also get like a card or a pad or something and try and block off light that's coming in, creating glare that you don't want. Just in general, you don't want a lot of direct light hitting your painting. That's how you're gonna get glare. You want soft ambient light. So a lot of times I find myself using a card or something to block off light from the side that I know is coming in and creating glare. All right, tip number 7 is try not to have to adjust the photo so much after you've taken it. You know, there's a lot of editing settings on the phone. You can adjust the contrast, you can adjust the brightness, the saturation, the color temperature, and those can be helpful. Like I've definitely used those a few times to just kind of push things a little bit this way or that way. But if you're, having to push the saturation a lot and having to push the contrast a lot, chances are you're just gonna be pushing it further away from an accurate representation of what the painting is. So try your best to capture your painting accurately right from the start. It's worth the time to make sure you got the right lighting, the right angle, and the right distance. All right, now these last 3 tips are tips specifically for posting your photos online, because I get a lot of people asking about that. My first tip is try putting you in the photo. In my experience, the posts that do the best are the pictures where either I'm in the photo or it's on my easel. And I think just having like a reference for how big the painting is, and also that it is like a real object, like a real thing that exists, especially now with all this AI art and everything. Like if you have a painting just cropped, people initially like won't know, oh, like did a computer create this? Oh, did they create it in Photoshop? It's like, no, you created this in real life with actual real paint, and that's special. Now I haven't done it, but I know there's like a trend of people showing their paintings by like turning to the camera to reveal their painting. And a big part of why I think that works is that like you have a reference for the painting in real space. Now that leads me to my next tip, which is try taking a video. Sometimes taking a video can like be better quality in a way. I don't know, sometimes I feel like I get less glare when I take a video. Also, you can do a lot more with a video if you're gonna post it. Like you can, start wide and show the whole painting, and then you can zoom in and like show the brushwork, show the details, show, how much paint is on the canvas. Or something cool is like you could start on the focal point and then pull out. And it's just kind of a more interesting way to take in the painting. Or if you want to show multiple paintings at once, every now and then on Instagram, I'll just post what's on my drying rack back there, and I'll just kind of go down the line. And it's fun to look at. You get to see a lot of paintings all in one video. And again, you have like a reference for how big they are. It's like, oh wow, that's a really big painting, or oh wow, that's a really small painting. All right, and the last tip, which is probably the most important tip, show your progress. Meaning take photos throughout the process of painting your painting. And don't be afraid to post those. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, like I'm not that good, nobody wants to see that. It's like, no, people do want to see it. And no matter how much of a beginner you are, there's always going to be people out there who haven't even started yet. And if they can see you and your process, it could inspire them to think, hey, like they're doing it, I could do that too. And you kind of like demystify the process for them, and it becomes something more realistic that they can do, and before they know it, they're painting. And everybody works differently, and it's interesting to kind of see behind the curtain and see how people build a painting. When I was first starting to learn oils, it was like really before all the social media, and so seeing someone's process was like a hard thing to see. You had to like buy their DVD for $150, or you had to buy their book if they even had a book. Most didn't. Or you had to actually physically go to them to watch them paint. So this ability for us to see everybody's process is a really cool thing, and it's a very helpful thing as well. All right, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you can take some better photos of your paintings now. If you'd like to see some photos of my paintings on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.